This is Popular Front, a podcast focused on the niche details of modern warfare and underreported conflict with me, Jake Hanrahan. Today we're speaking to analyst Ariz Kader, and he's going to be explaining to us why Turkey is bombing Iraqi Kurdistan. Now, you might remember last week there was this horrific video that went around Twitter where basically there's a Kurdish family playing in the river in Suleymaniye, and a Turkish drone strike hits just 20 meters away. Many of them were injured. The kids had shrapnel embedded in them. One woman lost her legs. It was horrible. There's a whole history behind this situation. It's very complicated, and there's a lot to be said about why Turkey is bombing right next to civilians and all of that. So Ariz is going to explain that to us. Hopefully it all makes sense. If you like what we're doing here at Popular Front, please do consider supporting at patreon.com/popularfront. So there was the airstrike recently, right? It was all over Twitter, where it's like a family is just playing in I think the river right near Suleymaniye. Everyone goes there, right? It's like a tourist, well, not even a tourist. It's like a family destination, right, where people play with their kids in the river and what have you. And then on this video, we see this airstrike. You don't see the airstrike, you hear the airstrike, and then you can see a bit of shrapnel like hits the water near the child and the mother. You hear the bam, all the kids are screaming. I believe a woman lost her legs, one of the children is injured. It's a fucking horrible situation. But a lot of people were saying, people weren't quite, aware of what was going on in the situation there. People were saying, well, why is Turkey bombing Iraq? Because this is northern Iraq, Iraqi Kurdistan, the KRG. So I think, but let's just start there. Why is Turkey hitting airstrikes in Kurdistan, in Iraqi Kurdistan?
Airstrikes have been going on for a while, but it's connected to Turkish operations in northern Iraq generally. I mean, they do it in Kurdistan and some of them outside of the Kurdistan region. So you'll have airstrikes in Shingal, Sinjar that is, and in Mahmud camp as well. It's connected to the larger Turkish fight against the PKK. They've been conducting ground incursions as well as airstrikes since about the mid-90s or maybe early 90s. Early 90s they did just incursions. They just go in and shoot about a bit, try to make sure that the PKK wasn't able to conduct raids across into the border. But later on, they tried to, as the PKK became more established in Kandil and northern Iraqi Kurdish mountain areas, these operations kind of grew in size and scope, and that they've kind of morphed into what you'll see today. So you've got, at the moment they've got two operations going on under the Claw banner. Turkey's always, in my mind, Turkey's probably the most interesting military out there when it comes to names. They name their operations pretty hilarious things at times. They'll be like, there's an olive there, the olive branch, So they've called this one Claw.
Eagle Claw, right?
Yeah, it's two operations basically. It's Eagle Claw's the aerial bombing campaign. Hence Eagle, I guess, and the other one's or Claw Eagle rather, but they've got Claw Tiger as well, which is the ground incursion operation, the TSK, so the Turkish Armed Forces, and some special kind of gendarmerie units as well. They're doing the ground operations, so they're doing the incursion and occupying more and more kind of hills and border villages. So that's that component, and the airstrike that you mentioned before. They've been conducting these airstrikes for a while now, and they've gotten a lot more sophisticated. In the past it used to be that they would use Anka drones and stuff. So the Anka drones used to be unarmed, so they'd use these massive drones, O'Haran drones, and they would scope an area out, and if they found a camp or an outpost or whatever, they would relay that information to TSK forces, and they would do an incursion like 20 minutes later or so. But within 20 minutes, these guys are gone, so it wasn't always that useful. But now they've got armed drones. They've got the Bayraktar and other more armed Anka type drones. So they've been a lot more aggressive and going after PKK members and leaders. And the benefit of that is you get videos as well, so it's interesting for them. These last airstrikes happened in Kunamasi. I mean, these are the ones that Twitter found out about. Kunamasi is this, it's like you said, it's a tourist area. It's a place where I've been tons of times. Me and my family used to go there all the time. It's basically, just a river kind of area with a valley and maybe a waterfall or two, and it's an innocent place. And what seems to have happened was one of the PKK cadres, so it's a guy from some, he's I don't know if he's a fighter or if he's a guy who gets people's stuff, but he went down to the shops to get something, and he's driven down there. And as he gets out, an airstrike hits him and possibly also the shop that he entered. And it immediately kills him. But it also injures a bunch of civilians. I mean, what you see in the video is down by the river. It's about 20 meters away from where the shop seems to have been. And in the shop, you've got the shopkeeper and his wife and their kids. And the kids, I mean, one of them got shrapnel in his head. The other one apparently didn't get seriously injured, but is in shock. The guy himself got shrapnel in his chest. So he's the store owner, and his wife sadly lost her leg as well. So I mean, there's quite a lot of civilian casualties and injuries from just one airstrike.
Incredibly reckless to hit to drop an airstrike in an area like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with drones, right? That you don't have that risk. It's the same thing that happened with the U.S. in Afghanistan or Iraq. Once you kind of outsource that ability to kill, because you can't surrender to a drone, right? You can't go, okay, I'm sorry, stop, I surrender. You can't do that. The only reason you've got drones is to kill. So using drones is lethal at all times. You can't use them for anything else. So it is reckless, but it's also not something that gets relayed back into the Turkish public. So when you do have civilian casualties, because you had some in Turkey as well, inside Turkey, there was a pretty famous case with 3 guys who lived in this village in, I think it's Şırnak, one of the border provinces, and they've gone for just a picnic, and this isn't even a military area, so this is just a general kind of open spot. You've got checkpoints and stuff everywhere, but that's just southeast Turkey. So they go to this picnic area, and on the way there, literally like 300 meters from where they picnicked, they got checked for IDs, and then they got killed. And they were civilians. I mean, it was obvious. They're from the village. They're going for a picnic, and media in Turkey reported them as PKK fighters. And their families, I mean, obviously the families are really upset, and they've tried their best to get some sort of clarity and explanation for why their family got killed, and it hasn't really gone anywhere. But that's not an isolated case either. So Turkey doesn't really admit to many civilian casualties normally. I mean, they did now. It seems like because it happened in Iraqi Kurdistan. And Kurds have been pretty upset in the area. I mean, it's a place that's politically sensitive for Turkey anyway to conduct any kind of operations. They've gotten really upset, so they've admitted to some civilian casualties. I think they admitted to 5 people that have gotten killed so far. But the guy, I just spoke to a journalist in the area, and he told me that combined, I think they've counted something like 28 people have gotten killed just in one area. Yeah, I mean, it's quite a lot.
So when this happened, right, I had people asking me that, weren't fully aware of the situation with Kurdistan and the different factions. And people were saying to me, like, oh, well, why is, how is this happening? And, there was some talk that the KRG had met with, Turkey before this, the KRG being the Kurdistan regional government, the people that are running this autonomous zone in northern Iraq, the Kurdish areas. And basically they had kind of agreed with Turkey, from what we understand, that, yeah, they can do this airstrike. So people are saying, why is Kurds letting Turkey bomb Kurds? So I think maybe, Ariz, like maybe you can explain all of that to us. There's a very interesting, very intricate, factionalism between the PKK, the KRG, PUK, Barzanis, all of that. Maybe you can just kind of lay that out on the table for us a little bit.
I mean, how much time have you got? Because within northern Iraq, or the Kurdistan regional government, or the Kurdistan region rather, you've got three main actors. You've got the KDP, which is the Kurdistan Democratic Party, and they're run by Masoud Barzani, who's still the president of the party technically, and then you've got Nejibran Barzani and Masroor Barzani. They're both the head of the government in the presidency and the prime ministership. So they're the main kind of political actor, and they've got a very good relationship to Turkey. So they're reliant on Turkey as well for diplomatic support and economic relations as well. So they've got a border that Turkey controls, and since relations with the Kurdistan region and Baghdad aren't always great, it's critical that they have this relationship with Turkey, no matter what. But then you've got the PUK as well, which is the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, which is a pretty interesting name. You've got the Talibani family. So you've got Jalal Talibani, who used to be the president of Iraq before he died. He's a member. He was the member of that party and the founder of the party. And those two parties together run the KRG. So they are the Kurdistan regional government, and you've got a bunch of smaller parties that kind of really don't get to say anything. Then you've got the PKK, and the PKK exists outside of this. So they're not part of government. What they are is a militant kind of political organization that works outside of these boundaries. I mean, they're there because of a lot of reasons. I mean, they're there basically because they weren't allowed to be in Turkey. It was really hard to be in Turkey, and then they got based in Syria, and they also sent some people to Iraq and Lebanon and a few other places. And when they were done in Syria, when they were asked to leave, or rather told to leave, in the late 90s, they all moved basically into Iraq. So they've got the Kandil Mountains is where they're based. And the Kandil Mountains is basically, I mean, it's inhospitable. It's not really strategic in any sense for the PUK or the KDP. They don't really need anything there. It doesn't really have any resources or a large population or anything like that. So they weren't really there to begin with. So the PKK used that as a base for themselves, and now they're quite well trenched. But then you've also got this kind of dynamic because they weren't invited in, and they don't really adhere to any kind of political dealings in Iraqi Kurdistan. They don't really want to be part of government. They want to be government, so they run their own areas and they create their own kind of structures, and that pisses a lot of people off in the Kurdistan region. There's been quite a lot of conflict between primarily the KDP and the PKK, where the KDP's been backed by Turkey. I mean, there were a few, I think it was 97 was, maybe even 94. I think 94 was the first time they fought, but both the PUK and the KDP, I think, helped with a kind of a Turkish-led offensive against the PKK. Nothing really happened. I mean, it was hard ground to cover, and there weren't drones around, so it was quite difficult territory.
You're about the Turkish armed forces when they went into Kandil, essentially, like the ground operations.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of the first ones. They did that, and the Kurdish parties were part of it. And I mean, there was a civil war that happened afterwards that made a lot of these kind of offensive where Kurds would find other Kurds a lot less attractive. So you've got the term Bırak Kuji, which basically means, brother killing, and that's the name of the civil war basically. So it made it a lot less popular to fight the PKK or any other Kurdish group. So in the 97 there was another one. They even got 97 was an interesting year for the KDP. They did a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, they fought the PKK and they got Turkish help to do it. and it was unsuccessful as well. The KDP lost a lot of fighters. The PKK didn't really admit to much. I think they admitted to something like 150 fighters were killed, something like that. So there's been this history of Kurdish fighting, but in recent years it's really died down quite a lot. The KDP is trying to play kind of a more conciliatory role between both Turkey and the PKK, as well as trying to get the PKK to stop fighting Turkey. I mean, they would really love the PKK to leave, basically. They would like them to stop fighting Turkey and leave Iraqi Kurdistan somehow. Not sure that's going to happen.
Yeah, well, maybe explain why KDP can't do that, because for some people they'll see it as, well, you know, KDP is the government, they can just get rid of the PKK, but obviously Kandil is very much not like that. I mean, Jesus, the terrain, God forbid anyone that's trying to go in there on the ground, like, it's crazy. So why is it then that, you know, PKK are like, no, we're staying here in Kandil, and, you know, no one can really get them out?
I mean, it's a fortress. If you've ever been in the area, I don't know if you've been. I mean, it's a fortress. It's steep mountain area with valleys in between, and it's all terrain that the PKK knows really, really well, intimately. They know every kind of nook and cranny. They know everyone who lives there. They know every village. They've got a lot of local contacts, a lot of information that goes in and out. They know if something's happening. They'll be able to mobilize really quickly, and they've been fighting NATO's second largest army for decades, so they've got a lot of experience as well. They're really tough fighters, as well as they know how to evade, evade helicopters and stuff like that. They even have, they've gotten supplies from here and there. Iran at some point has been, alleged to have supported them here, maybe Iraq, who knows. Syria did it one time as well. So they've got a lot of, black market type weaponry as well. So it's not easy to get to them. I've seen a few, I don't know if it was RPG-7s or if it was actually manpads that they used to to shoot down some helicopters at some point. So it hasn't been easy to sail any of these places. And the KDP, they've got a lot of training recently, and at times they've been efficient fighters, but the PKK is at a different level. Experience-wise, they really were very, very different. So it was impossible. It's changed now, though. With drones, the entire kind of landscape looks different. The PKK used to be able to launch attacks into Turkey quite freely almost. Which was a headache for Turkey. I think it was 2011, they launched this massive attack, lots of simultaneous attacks all over southeast Turkey against border points. They haven't done anything like that for a while, and that's because they can't. These drones really are quite efficient at keeping the PKK away.
Yeah, in terms of talking about PKK fighting Turkey, obviously, like you said, the cross-border incursions are like kind of less. But what we did see last year, I remember it because I just got to fucking Iraq and was about to cross into Syria when it happened, and everything got turned on its head. When PKK killed one of the Turkish, I can't remember, was it diplomat or one? Basically, they killed a Turkish politician, right, in Erbil, if I remember correctly. So maybe you can talk a bit about like the PKK's relationship with the KRG, like with the KDP, sorry, because that is quite interesting. Like, yeah, they'll do it, they can't do the attacks there, but they feel free to just go and do these attacks still in Erbil, essentially in the heart of KDP territory.
The PKK basically, I'll try not to be, I guess, too blunt with some of this stuff, but they really do feel like they can do whatever they like. Saying that is probably going to upset a lot of kind of internet Kurds somewhere, but it's true. They don't really feel privy to anything. They don't feel like they have to. They say basically, this is Kurdistan, right? So we're Kurdish. This is Kurdistan. So we get to do what we like. We've got just as much right to run this as you do.
I mean, it's a fair point in to be honest. In some degree, do you know what I mean? When they're getting like airstrike from their enemies.
It does, but I mean, at the same time, Iraqi Kurdistan has been through a lot. To be fair, they've been through the Anfal genocide. They've been fighting constantly. I mean, not constantly, but mostly since like the 40s. It hasn't been a rosy place to live. And finally, now there's some sort of a semblance of local governance. I mean, look, Kurdish is the national language. You've got a lot of these stuff that was hard fought, and it isn't permanent. I mean, it's not like this. None of these rights last forever, and they don't. Rights don't last unless there's some sort of force behind it. So if you continue to, launch attacks to Turkey, and there's no sense of pushback against it in any way, Turkey will just invade. I mean, why wouldn't they? They've invaded anywhere they want, and no one's been able to stop them. So why wouldn't they just occupy the KRG completely, like the KRI completely? And that's the fear that a lot of these people do have. I mean, the KDP, you can say whatever you like about them. I mean, and you probably will, and probably a lot of people would, and they'd be justified in a lot of it. But there is the point that they make in that this is a safe place to be as a Kurd. If you live in the KRI, you can speak your language, you can learn it, you can freely express your culture, your history, and you're not afraid of any of that. That would be different under Turkish occupation. If you look at Afrin or anything like that, you'll see what the effects of Turkish occupation is. It's not rosy, it's not great. So to avoid that, I mean, it's logical to say that you would want the PKK to stop fighting Turkey, but at the same time, I mean, on a personal level, I would say, yeah, okay, cool, you want PKK to stop fighting Turkey, but you also at the same time have to push for Kurdish rights in Turkey. If you're not doing that at the same time, then what are you saying, basically? I mean, you're just saying that Kurds should stop fighting for their rights in Turkey? I mean, no, obviously you shouldn't. So yeah, I mean, you could agree with the KRG in saying that fighting Turkey makes Turkey kind of push further into Iraqi Kurdistan, and it does. But at the same time, if you're not doing anything about Kurdish rights in Turkey, then you don't really have much of an argument.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. I agree, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, what I think is this, like, it's a weird situation when I saw when all this happened, and a lot of Kurds online were saying, like, how can Barzani let this happen? Why are they letting Turkey bomb people? And some of Barzani's children were on Twitter saying, like, well, what can we do? And I was like, fucking hell, what a cop-out. But then when you think about it, he's kind of right. It's like, what can they actually do? They can't do anything, which then makes me think, well, what is the KRG actually? Is it an autonomous zone, or is it, you know what I mean? I mean, how many Turkish military bases are there now in the KRG?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think the last report I read, and this was about a year ago, was something like 17 confirmed bases. I mean, they've got lots of outposts, but some of them aren't manned. They'll even put, I mean, I've seen some video of someone that walked past one, and they've put a mannequin there, to make it look like someone's there. So the outposts, yeah, exactly. So the outposts, I wouldn't take that seriously, but they've got lots of bases, something like 17 official ones. And now with the Claw Tiger, they've occupied something like, I think they've pushed in up to 20 kilometers further into Iraqi Kurdistan. So that's a lot. When it's quite a long border, and I think I might remember wrongly, but I think Turkish armed forces said something like 20 bases would be built in this area. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a huge amount.
And they're not leaving. We all know, once Turkey get there, their boots are on the ground, they don't leave. It's not like an operational thing. They don't leave. It's part of the expansion. My point is, like, I can understand how, like, there are other people, I've got a lot of friends over there that are just like, this is fucking mental. Like, we just can't, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, essentially. Do you know what I mean? You've got the PKK are fighting, KRG deeply corrupt, not paying people, but also rich and can't stop Turkey. It just seems to me like it's a bit of a powder keg, it seems to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. Definitely is. I mean, it's hard to do anything. I mean, maybe online, some kid or whatever, or someone who's not really that very, very into Kurdish politics is going to say, like you said, why aren't they doing anything? They're killing Kurd civilians and so on. They've done some things they have asked for Iraqi border forces to come to border areas, just to make sure that the Turks don't feel too comfortable pushing further in. So they've done some of this stuff because, let's be honest, Turkey doesn't really care about the KDP. If the KDP pushes a few Peshmerga up there, they're just going to push them to the side and walk through them. Or what are the Peshmerga going to do? Peshmerga going to just shoot at them? No, they're not. But they do feel less comfortable, pushing at official Iraqi border forces, people that they'd like to actually have a good relationship with. And I mean, they would like to pretend that Iraq is, this sovereign country that the territorial integrity has to be kept. And it looks bad when you're pushing border forces, right? So they've done stuff like that. They have said, official statements have been put out where they put out, both sides kind of statement, like, we would like the PKK to leave and we would like Turkey to stop with its airstrikes. Basically saying nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, wasn't it, from what I read, I think it's Iraq, Iran, the KDP, all kind of agreed, right, that, yeah, Turkey can do this, which is quite a big situation. Like, even Iran has been bombing, like, PJAK, like PKK, HRK guerrillas in the Iranian areas near Kandil, like, or near Iraq, whatever. Like, it seems like a lot of empty talk because I think they've already kind of had the decision. Yeah,
I mean, it's limited what anyone can do. If you go back to like the Kurdish referendum that happened in 2017, I hope it was 2017. My memory's not great, but immediately afterwards, Turkey basically shut the border. Iran shut the border, and Iraqi Kurdistan was, at risk of starving. They coordinate on things like this. Anything that happens that could potentially alter the Kurdish situation, they coordinate on. Why wouldn't they? They've all got huge Kurdish populations, and they don't want them getting ideas into their head. The KRG is already a headache for Turkey in the sense that why would you allow them to have autonomy but not us? I mean, Kurds in Turkey are far more numerous. Why wouldn't that happen? So, I mean, they've already said that they wouldn't allow this kind of northern Iraq scenario to happen again in Syria, which has been one they've fought really hard, even against their own allies, to make sure that it doesn't happen. Iran, I mean, kind of quietly, because you pay attention to the Turkish airstrikes, but Iran's been pushing about 10 kilometers in on their side of the border with ground troops.
Really? I wasn't aware. They've been pushing into Iraqi Kurdistan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if they kind of went permanently, but about 10 Ks in, they got with that's a journalist told me this. I haven't been on the ground myself, but this has been happening on the Iranian side. And at times, the Iranians will also, assassinate Kurdish leaders in Iraqi Kurdistan, so they'll send someone to kill kind of a KDPI leader or whatever, or even in Iran, in Europe. Or I think recently they had one of the former KDPI members, leaders in I think it was the Netherlands. He got stabbed numerous times by some kid from Iran.
And just explain who the KDPI are, because we're getting, as is always, we're in alphabet soup territory.
The Kurdish acronym game is a fun game. Like you do have a lot of groups, and the KDPI is as you might imagine, it's the Kurdistan Democratic Party of Iran. So they're kind of, they're an independent party. They're linked to the Barzani's version of the party, but they're based in Iran, or they're based in Iraqi Kurdistan rather, but they're from Iran, and they have to do with Iran. And they've had their leadership in Iraqi Kurdistan, and for a time they were safe in some areas, and now they don't seem as safe as they used to be after the referendum.
They have bases in Kandil as well, like literally down the road from the PKK, so it's all very dangerous for them as well, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a headache for anyone, right? It's a headache just to remember these names, and it's a headache because you've got a history of inter-Kurdish rivalry as well. So you've got the KDP fighting the PKK, the PKK fighting the KDP fighting the PUK, and so on. So it becomes pretty easy to leverage Kurds against each other. So there's good Kurds, bad Kurds thing is, it's difficult.
Yeah, one of my closest friends, he's a Kurdish guy. He said to me once, the biggest enemy of the Kurds is not Turkey, it's other Kurds. And I was like, yeah, and I kind of laughed, but he was like, no, think about it. I was like, yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, it's pretty fucked up. It's sad, you know.
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah.
So Turkey has been hitting Sinjar as well, which we haven't mentioned yet. They've hit Shengal. Like, why are they doing that? A lot of people are not understanding, like, why would they hitting the Yazidis after the Yazidis have, like, you know, getting over a genocide by ISIS? But of course, there are, you know, PKK affiliated groups there, you know, not HRE, that's Afrin. Jesus, I'm losing track of the fucking the names now. The YBS, that's what I was thinking of. So, but of course, again, it's like, it's very easy for people to say, well, why are the PKK there? Well, you know, if we look at the history, we know what happened. The Peshmerga effectively abandoned the Yazidis, and the PKK came down and fought ISIS, you know what I mean, and tried to stop it. But again, they didn't leave, right? So I don't know. Maybe let's go into that. Why is Turkey hitting Sinjar as well?
I mean, from Turkey's point of view, they see all these groups as PKK, right? So they don't really care if it's the YPG, if it's the YBS, if it's the PJAK or whatever it is, the TAK or anything. They consider all these groups PKK. So if you're looking from Turkey's kind of perspective, you see PKK just spreading around your border. So you've got the Kandil, and then you've got Syria, and now you've got Sinjar as well. So it's just getting closer and closer to them being kind of surrounded by PKK. And they don't like this, so they obviously consider all these groups the same, so they'll attack them just the same, no matter what. Sinjar becomes politically, you know, sensitive because it's Yazidis, and they don't want to be seen as fighting Yazidis, but at the same time they kind of just do it anyway. So they've gotten over that quite quickly. The YBS is an interesting project because it doesn't really need to be there, in a way. I mean, if you think about it, they've saved the Yazidis, a lot of the Yazidis, and then they kind of started these Democratic Confederalist type groups in Sinjar as well. I mean, trying to spread Öcalan thought amongst these groups. And the people in the area don't necessarily want that to happen. I mean, if you think about it, Shingal's been destroyed. I mean, it's a wreck. They haven't rebuilt anything. People still living on the mountain. They're living in camps. You know, most of these people haven't returned to their houses. They're really afraid. They've got all these trauma that are continuous. They just want to kind of get something close to normality. They don't need Turkey on their border. You know, they don't need Turkey to come invade. And they also don't really. I mean, you can say a lot about the Yazidis. I mean, there's a lot to be said about them, but they're quite conservative socially. They're very, very conservative. They keep to themselves, and they have very strict kind of hierarchies and ideas of men and women and all this stuff. So Öcalan thought, with this kind of, very liberal, pseudo-anarchist kind of idea, very progressive, it doesn't really appeal to the traditional kind of way of thinking.
But I think what appeals less as well is, like, I think they need security, right? What appeals less is they don't want to get attacked again.
That's the real deal. So they don't really want to be attacked. They don't want a fight between the Iraqi government and the Peshmerga. They don't want a fight between Turkey and the PKK or the YBS or anyone. They don't want any of this. I mean, they're very thankful. I mean, if you look for statements from both, you know, the religious authorities, civilian authorities, the kind of civilian orgs as well in Sinjar, you'll find that they're really grateful to all kinds of groups. I mean, the PKK especially for what they did, and the Iraqi army as well, and even you'll see the one or another mention of the Peshmerga, not always positive. But I mean, they really just want to be left alone. So this kind of YBS presence, it doesn't really seem to be doing much good for them in any case. But it's also an excuse for Turkey to go bomb them. So I don't understand why the PKK is there. It has something to do with Syria, of course, and the border there. But at the same time, I mean, if you look at the risk towards civilians and the Yazidis especially, they've been through a lot. Maybe it's not worth it. That's just my 2 cents.
But then I think you could argue as well, if they're not there, I mean, no one else is going to protect them. Like the Peshmerga already abandoned them. Barzani is not interested in really rebuilding their areas, as far as I'm aware. It's kind of like, even if they don't like them, I feel like, I don't know, it's better to have something. Do you know what I mean? It's better to have a blunt knife than no knife.
I mean, the Yazidis they've not got a fair deal in any case. I mean, and the Peshmerga were there and they were supposed to protect them, and then the KDP Peshmerga just fled immediately when ISIS came, and then the Iraqi military was supposed to, provide some sort of security, and it's been kind of haphazard. It's been mainly PMUs in the area, and no one really wants them either. So you've got the YBS there. I mean, what would be great would be if you had some sort of a local police force or something, like a branch of the federal police, for example, but completely made up of local Yazidis. That would be great, right?
Yeah, well, there are some local, like, I mean, the YBS is not just all, I mean, when PKK did this video where they were like, we're leaving Sinjar now, and we're not there, it was like, literally, people I know there, like, even Guerrilla were like, yeah, we just swap patches, you know what I mean? And then people will be very angry for me for saying that. I don't care, that's the truth, that's what happened. But also, there's a hell of a lot of Yazidis as well that were like, yeah, fuck yeah, like, defense, we need to defend ourselves now. So it's not true that it's just the PKK with different uniforms. There's a lot, like I think the main YBS commander is a Yazidi himself, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely, they're probably made up of mostly Yazidis, to be honest. I mean, if you look, but that's kind of the reality of all these groups. If you look at Syria, the Turkish military and the politicians would love to say that, look, it's all PKK, and look at this guy. I mean, here's a photo of him with Öcalan 20 years ago or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, maybe the top cadres or some sort of trainers or whatever, they would be PKK for sure. But then you've got the rest that they're not, and you've got these local groups that I mean, this is why they're so good at surviving, right? Because they build these local networks and they build up and they keep training new people and so on. So you've probably got a majority Yazidi local group. But the point is that are they providing security, or are they kind of a good reason for Turkey to keep bombing? I would say the latter. I mean, the Yazidis aren't going to have a nice time either way, but at least they wouldn't be bombed by Turkey at the same time.
Yeah, it's a very just bad situation. I feel like we've let off. I feel like I feel like we've let the KDP off a little bit here, and I feel like we really and the PUK. I feel like we really should mention the unbelievable levels of corruption that are taking place there. And the first time I was ever made aware of this, right, I was in Aski Kalak, right, the Kazir front, 2014. And it was a fucking, like literally it was on the Mosul Road. ISIS was everywhere at that time. It was horrible. And I was out there with Peshmerga, reporting and that. And they kept I had like these fucking shit suede boots on that I didn't have any other boots. And they were joking with me like, hey, can we have your boots? And I was like, what? Like, these are terrible for frontline. And they were like, well, look at ours. And they like literally were wearing like, shoes that you would go to a wedding in, just anything about from trainers or whatever. They had Milan missile launchers that they didn't have Milan rockets for. I remember I had a joke at the time. I took a picture and I published the picture and was like, Peshmerga ready to fire the Milan, and loads of people were like, oh, dickhead, there's no rocket in it. It's like, yeah, that's the joke. Like, it was just, you know what I mean? The whole thing, it was absolutely disgusting. These were Zeravani, right? These were like hardcore guys, and they weren't deeply political in the sense, they were like, we'll fight alongside our brothers from PKK, PUK, anywhere, like they were just wanting to defend their land. And even then they hadn't been paid for months and months and months. So then it really made me sick when the last time I was in like Iraqi Kurdistan last year, the same situation was still going on. Peshmerga still not being paid, $100 million mansions being built in Miami or wherever it is by the KDP. PUK are just like, what is going on, man? Like, what is going on there?
I mean, the corruption in the KRIs, it's kind of beyond belief. So, some things are getting better, weirdly enough. I mean, it's this weird dynamic where they have to, they've got these auditors from abroad, they have to kind of present some sort of new direction, because people, foreign backers know that they're being really corrupt, right? So they fixed some stuff. They've increased like internal revenues and stuff like that. But the main sources of corruption are still control of borders, control of main industries, whatever kind of, if you build, let's say you build a chicken factory or whatever, some local politician will come and say, okay, cool, I'm part of this. I'm a silent, I'm a silent partner, and I get 20% or whatever. And that's usually how it goes down. And they also used to control oil wells here and there. They still control some gas fields. And they would funnel this money out, usually through Turkey, into the US, invested in, like you say, mansions. Apparently, the real estate moguls, the Barzanis, especially. And it's unbelievably corrupt. And because they've kind of dollarized everything, right? So they've moved all their assets abroad. They don't really care that much about the internal economy either. So if everything goes bust, no one gets paid for 8 months, there's no bread on the table, nothing happens, they're not really that affected because their money's abroad. So if whatever happens, it's not that bad. You wouldn't see a Barzani starving or a Talibani starving because there's been a blockade. It doesn't happen. And it probably never will. Like you say with the Peshmerga, the Peshmerga were inflated to begin with, so you had way too many people on the payroll to begin with. So even if they had a good budget, they couldn't really get anything because there was like 150,000 or something Peshmerga at one point. It was like a ridiculously large number for such a small area. And they wouldn't they wouldn't buy them good stuff. I mean, you wouldn't get. I remember when my brother enlisted, you'd get like you have to buy most of your own stuff, and you would anyway. You'd go to the black market and you'd get some stuff for yourself. You'd go to the shops basically to get a uniform. So it wasn't like they got anything, and they would still fight. So I mean, there's a lot of bravery at that time. Even with Shingal, we'll say that the KDP Peshmerga ran, but they were ordered to run as well. It's not like all these guys were like, oh, here's ISIS, let's tuck tail, because they didn't in lots of other areas. They fought really bravely, but in Sinjar they just ran, and that's because they were told to. Yeah, I mean, the order came from, Aziz Waisi and a lot of other people. I mean, it was obvious who did it. They still haven't been put to court. They still haven't been put to justice. No one's been charged for what they did in Shingal. And all these guys had to run. Some people were crying, They really didn't want to go. They left everything. It was awful. But that's the reality there. But it's not just Peshmerga. Peshmerga are kind of let off easy in a way because you have to pay them, otherwise they've got guns, right? So they'll get paid something. But you've got teachers that hadn't been paid for nearly a year, right? They would still be teaching in schools. They would still be helping people out, but they would have gotten nothing. They would be living on savings for nearly. Can you imagine nearly a year of living off savings while still going to work every day?
Yeah, and then the real slap in the face is I like I say, I have a lot of friends over there. And then the real slap in the face is when they then see the social media profiles of some of the sons of the government, and they're shooting gold-plated AKs and are driving around in big Mercedes, whilst, like you say, teachers are not being paid. And then if they say anything to them, they're like, "Well, what do you want us to do?" Like, just don't steal all the money. Like, I'm very, like, I don't know, man. It's I just think it's so sad. Like, the people of Kurdistan, like you said, they're getting a raw deal from everywhere. You got PKK in the mountains, so Turkey bombs. You got no money, no one's getting paid properly. Corruption everywhere, infighting, ISIS, Iraq, Turkey, Iran. Like, it's real. I don't know, man. It's a real shame because it's such a beautiful region with such a great people.
I mean, it's a sad reality, but I mean, this is why you've got kind of the second wave of refugees as well from Iraqi Kurdistan, because I mean, the beginning you've got refugees from the war, but now you've got all these young kids and they see no future whatsoever and they're trying to leave. And everyone you talk to, basically, all the young people I talk to back home, I'd be like, hey, what are your plans and so on. They'd be like, inshallah, the first chance I get, I'm leaving. I'm getting to Germany or Holland or wherever. It's not a place where you can. I mean, and in relative terms, this is much better than the rest of Iraq, right? At least you've got some sort of a relative safety. You're not going to get robbed on the street or kidnapped or anything like this. But it's not, it's not a life you would imagine that you would like, And like you say, you've got also these politicians that, I mean, the politicians themselves, they try to keep private. Everyone's been by Nechirvan's house in Erbil. It's hard to miss. It's insanely big. It's like a block that he has just for himself.
I drove past it last year, and the driver was like, "We're passing his house now," and like 2 minutes later, he's like, "We're still passing his house." It's like, it's that big.
It's unbelievably large. It's a huge compound for just one guy, right? And probably his close family. But you don't see images from the inside. I mean, I've never seen what it looks like inside. I haven't seen any of these Instagram pictures of a pool or anything like this. I haven't seen any of it. So the top cadres, they're really, really, really interested in making sure no one knows how much money they have. I mean, for obvious reasons as well, right? It's kind of you don't want a French Revolution type scenario. But then you've got the kids that aren't as bright, and they'll take pictures in a private jet, their dad's private jet, and they'll be wearing, I mean, they'll be 14 years old or whatever, wearing a Breitling, and be like, oh man, I'm just cruising in my jet to Spain for a holiday, whatever. And they'd be doing this in the height of the recession, and it's insane. So I mean, I'm not trying to make the KDP or PUK or any of these groups to be good guys or bad guys or anything like this. I'm just trying to say that, I mean, with the airstrikes and the PKK and the KRG, it's a complex kind of image, because if you talk to the people in the villages as well, I mean, it's pretty split. Some people would say, I mean, you had the video from PKK media afterwards, of Shaladzia. You had this airstrike and some kid got killed, and a lady whose kid got injured as well said something like, the guy who got killed was also my son, all these guys are also my sons, and I grieve for you and all this stuff. But you've also got, on the other hand, you've got people in these villages that have been depopulated, that can't go back home. In the border areas, because Turkey keeps invading and keeps these airstrikes quite constant, you can't live in some areas anymore. So people have had to leave their farms, their villages, ancestral villages. I think something like, I think it was 11 Assyrian villages or so on the border have been completely depopulated. I mean, they've got nowhere to go. It's insane how much this has disrupted normal life, and you could blame the KDP for letting Turkey in, but at the same time they can't really do much, even if they wanted the Turkey to leave. So that's just my point. I'm not trying to paint a rosy picture for everyone. It just sucks.
No, I agree. I think that's why it's good to kind of really get in the weeds about it, because like you said, it's just like it just happens. It's not a good bad guy this, that it's just happened, and it's like you said, they just can't do anything about it. They can't stop them, and it's like, I don't know, man. I don't even know what to say about it. It just seems like I can't see it lasting that long, unfortunately. Do you know what I mean? Like the whole kind of autonomous, autonomous maybe only in the word now because of this. I just, unfortunately, I can't see it lasting. I do think maybe Turkey will, I don't even think they'll do like a big push and take it over. It will just be like within a few years before you know it, like, oh, they're on the outskirts of Erbil now. Like, you know what I mean?
It's inch by inch. So I think they've got about 100 Ks to get to Kandil proper, and until then, I mean, it's operation after operation. So maybe in like 5 years' time, 10 years' time, they might be close to Kandil, and by then the PKK can't move into Turkey anyway. So I mean, what's the point? But at the same time, like I think, like most people, I'm hopeful that change happens within Turkey, because it's not change. I mean, the PKK is the PKK. They're quite stubborn in some areas. They probably won't change some things, And I mean, I won't say that's a completely bad thing. If it wasn't for the PKK pushing the agenda, even if it wouldn't be for peaceful means, you've got Kurds still existing in Turkey. I mean, they today you can say you're a Kurdish person. You can in some places speak Kurdish openly. I mean that always shifts, doesn't it? But they exist to a certain degree openly, and they wouldn't have been able to do that if there wasn't a Kurdish movement, of which PKK is a part, right? So you can't blame them for doing something stubbornly, and just not existing isn't kind of a choice for them. So my hope is that something happens within Turkey, maybe democratization of some sort, whatever, that opens up the possibility for peace. Because no one really wants to keep fighting. Who wants to keep fighting? No one wants constant war. People want the freedom to speak their own language, for the kids to learn their own language, to not be at a checkpoint every day of the week, to be able to say what ethnicity you are, where you're from. You know, people want these rights. They're basic rights. Every other Turkish citizen has them. Why not the Kurdish citizen as well? So I mean, it's they've got them in Iraqi Kurdistan. Did Iraq, you know, is Iraq no more? If anything, Iraq is kind of starting to heal in some areas, and it's not. If it did break up, it wouldn't be because Kurds broke it up, right? So you know, it's a moot point. I'm hoping for peace. I'm hoping for peace in Turkey, peace in Turkey, peace in Iraq.
Maybe, maybe one day. And what has been the UN response to all this? You know, like, because obviously America has a very vested interest in Iraqi Kurdistan. They have bases there. They do a lot of their operations out there, anti-Daesh operations, what have you. But again, I mean, you know, my personal opinion is that the UN it doesn't really have any legs. You know, just deeply concerned. But what do you think? Like, what are they actually saying? What do you think they might do if Turkey does push?
I mean, the UN, I'm not so sure of, because the UN is, I mean, it's a paper tiger. It doesn't really do much. But
yeah, or NATO, I should say.
I mean, I would say NATO will always do what NATO always does. It says it's you know, it's it respects Turkey's legitimate security concerns. That's literally, I mean, word for word, whatever statement you'll find about Turkey and the PKK, it'll use this term. No matter what it does, even if it's stuff that NATO wouldn't necessarily agree with, it would still use that term. So but what's interesting is how the U.S. responded, and the U.S. You had Pompeo, which is the Secretary of State. He released a statement saying basically that you know, we fully support Turkey in its fight against the PKK and all this stuff. So it's kind of ironic because, I mean, you've got the U.S. They support the SDF, and within them the YPG in Syria, and they've been protecting them to a certain degree. I mean, they didn't do very well recently against Turkish aggression, whereas in Iraq they support what Turkey's doing, even if it's violating Iraqi territorial integrity. So it's kind of a weird response. I don't think you're going to get any real criticism from them, and at the end of the day, I don't think anyone's going to be able to do anything. Even if the only ones that could possibly do anything is Iraq themselves, and the Kurdistan regional government's been kind of it hasn't wanted Iraq on its border anyway, because of like I said before, these borders are both crucial to sustaining or living a KRI that isn't fully dependent on the central government in Baghdad, but it also is completely crucial to these parties' tariffs and own dealings, right? So their own kind of corruption wouldn't be able to happen to the same degree without controlling the borders. So you wouldn't be able to do that. So you've got this kind of sad response where the KDP or the KRG is rather trying to do something to stop Turkey taking the border by laying some border guards to there, but at the same time you can't let federal police take over all the borders.
Yeah, it's just such a I mean, it's such a sad, like, hard situation, really. I think with that, we've probably pissed off just about every single faction that there is in Kurdistan, which is good. You know, you don't want to be easy on anyone. Anyway, Ariz, before we go, tell us about your podcast you got. You know, CSA. I think it's great. I've been listening to it. Tell us, our listeners, about that, because you know, if they like Popular Front, they're gonna like this.
Yeah, I mean, CSA is, I mean, I got a little bit, a few years ago I was trying to look for Kurdish podcasts, and I found a few of them, and they're good at what they do, I think. But I wanted something more political, and I think a lot of I mean, Kurds kind of get ignored to a certain degree. If you look at any panels, like political panels and things like that, you'll find, you know, an American or a Turkish person, an Arab, and so on. And you've got the Arabic academic talking about Arabic issues and so on, but you don't really have many Kurds presenting the Kurdish kind of point of view on things. And they don't really get to ask questions either from a Kurdish perspective. It has to be very general. So I thought it would be interesting to have a podcast dedicated to Middle East politics and Middle East issues, but from a Kurdish perspective, like what are we interested in, what affects us. So I thought I'd start it out. I mean, honestly, I don't like the sound of my own voice. I don't think I'm particularly talented or anything like that. But I like to ask questions, I like to learn more, and I think I've been able to do it so far. I've had really good guests. I've had guys like Aaron Lund explain Syria and why it's so hard to talk to the regime. I've had you on talking about, I mean, we've got an episode that's really good. People love about the Hendek War and Turkish prison. And I mean, it's been really good so far, so I'm really happy with it. I've got an episode coming out tomorrow, actually, on that's Tuesday, on PMUs, like popular mobilization units in Iraq, and how they're built up, where they come from, and what the future of PMUs is. With Fanar Haddad, who's the guy who wrote Sectarianism in the Middle East. So it's been really good.
Yeah, man, I think it's great. And where can people listen to it? How can they, you know, get to it?
It's on all major podcast kind of channels. So the platform, sorry. So you've got it on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and if you kind of prefer to not use any of those, you've got it at Anchor as well. So Anchor FM. I think it's. I'm going to look it up actually while we talk, because I can't remember exactly what I use. I think I use my own name. I know, right?
But it's spelled, so it's SIYASET. Right?
Yeah. If you search for CSET, SIYASET on Anchor, you'll find it.
What does it mean?
It means politics in Kurdish and Turkish, and it's the feminine word, I think, for politics in Arabic as well. So it's I'm pretty feminine, so I thought I could handle that one.
All right, mate. And where can people get hold of you on Twitter and whatever?
Yeah, I am on Twitter. I am on Twitter at Kader Ariz. So it's at KADERARIZ. So that's my handle.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, mate.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for having me.
That was Ariz Kader explaining to us why Turkey is bombing Iraqi Kurdistan and trying to go into as much detail as possible about the incredibly complicated situations between the tribalism, the factionism, all of that in the KRG. It is a mad situation, but hopefully, you know, it can kind of work itself out. I don't know. If you like what we're doing here at Popular Front, please do consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/popularfront. That is how we survive. We are completely grassroots, 100%. We do not have any corporate advertising. We do not have any rich benefactors, nothing like that. Everything we do is independent. Even the people that sponsor the episodes, we make sure that they're an independent company and they're not fucking over their workers, all of that. We like to keep it like that, you know, grassroots, fairer, showing like the big legacy media that, like, you know, we can go around them, like, fuck them. So yeah, if you like that and you want us to keep going and you want more Popular Front content, go to patreon.com/Popular Front. If you go there for $5 a month, you get bonus episodes. At the very least, there's 2 a month. Last month I think I did 4. It's basically like Popular Front 2.0, you know, like second podcast basically. Last week we just had one go out where it's a whole episode about jihadist themed airsoft. Just nearly died. Jihadist themed airsoft and ISIS merchandise in Indonesia. It's weird, man, like very weird. But yeah, bonus episodes, there's loads there. I think there's like, I think it's what, like pushing 60 odd, 70 odd now, I don't know. Also for the $10 a month, you get discounts on merchandise, you get access to the community Discord, you get episodes early before everyone else, you get something I'm not talked to anyone about yet, but I might as well mention it here. I think we're going to be doing something. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but actually serious. So, I mean, it's going to be called Too Cool for J School, right? J School being journalism school. Now, I'm not saying don't go to journalism school. I'm not saying don't go to college or uni, but I didn't do any of that, and I think there is definitely ways around it. You definitely do not have to do that. So we're going to start up like a little kind of, just a like very like rough video series, I think, where it'd be like me, some other people like around Popular Front, just saying like, here's some advice, here's what you can do with this, you know, or if you want to do, I don't know, you want to look up geolocation, here's some tools to do it, or here's some good books you want to do. It's something I want to start up soon. So yeah, Too Cool for J School. It's very dumb, I know, but it's not very dumb. It's going to make you smarter, I guess, if you want to get involved in journalism, specifically conflict journalism, but for any journalism really. So yeah, that will be on there as well. $30, you get your name on the episodes, you get to like request episodes, get to see like input behind the scenes shit now and then as well. Yeah, there's all sorts, man. So patreon.com/Popular Front. This episode, our sponsors are Oracle Coffee Shop. They're in Portland, Oregon, USA. They're an independent coffee shop selling only fair trade products. See them at 3875 Southwest Bond Avenue, 97239. Check out them, definitely. Oracle Coffee Shop, good friends of ours. Another coffee shop sponsoring us. There's 2. These guys are very cool as well. Grindcore House. They're a pair of independent coffee shops in Philadelphia, USA. One in the south, one in the west. Check them out on social media. Go to @Grindcore House. You'll see them. Cool bunch of people. Definitely tell them Popular Front sent you. And there was something else as well that I wanted to shout out on this episode to Dermot Cosgrove. Look him up on Twitter at Dermot, DERMOTN Cosgrove, COSGROVE, Dermot N Cosgrove. Shouting him out because basically he's doing this charity situation. It's in aid of Irish Dogs for the Disabled. They provide assistance dogs to mostly disabled kids. They do it completely free. They don't get government grants or funding or any of that. They're completely independent, just like us. So they're completely reliant on donations. It costs like 15,000 euros to train one dog. So yeah, Dermot is doing this crossing up to Iceland, I believe, to raise money for the charity. So if you go to his Twitter or go to twitter.com/dogs4disable1, you will see it there. There's information. Very good lad, very good cause. Definitely do check that out. If you want to follow us on social medias, go to, it's all fucking different, got all different handles and everything, man. Instagram.com/popular.front. Be aware we have perhaps the worst, most toxic comment section on the whole of Instagram. I don't have time to police it. I'm not going to start censoring it. But just remember, the scumbags that are often in the comments have nothing to do with us. They do not represent us. But yeah, go and see it. It's fucking chaos out there. Instagram.com/popular.front. Twitter is popularfrontco, or you can follow me at Jake_Hanrahan, HANRAHAN. YouTube.com/popularfront. All our docs are there. There will be a new doc very soon. You are now entering Free Cap Hill, which is basically the inside look into what was the so-called autonomous zone in Seattle in the US amongst the protests. Sadly, some people were killed there. Shootings, it's all mad. We've got a doc. Our lads are on the ground for everything. So yeah, youtube.com/popularfront. I think that's everything on social media. Oh, fuck knows, I can't remember. Yeah, if you want to look cool and support Popular Front, go to popularfront.shop. That is the website. The zine is sold out, so you can't get that now. Everyone's saying, please do reprints. We gave everyone a month to do it, and I gave an extra 24 hours, man. I can't just keep holding off the deliveries for the reprints, you know what I mean? But there will be an issue 2 next month, the month after, so don't worry about that. Popularfront.shop. There's new t-shirts, 2 new t-shirts on there. There's the watch list gang, which is a mad one. Like, look at it. It's like, some people think it's ugly, some people think it's the best thing I've ever seen. It's a monster in many ways. Just go to it. And if you are on the Patreon on the $10 tier, remember you get discount codes, so check the Patreon. I've already put the discount codes up there. I think that's everything. Probably, I don't know. Anyway, thank you very much to our higher tier Patreons. They are Ian Froese or Fries. Please let me know how to say that, mate. I think I might have said that wrong. Ian Froese, maybe. I don't know. Sorry, apologies. Do message me and let me know the pronunciation. James Cully, Michael Akakan. Again, if I am saying your names wrong, please tell me. Ethan Reyes, he messaged me and said, you either have said it right, you've said it right, I can't remember. Reyes, I think it was, or was it Reese's or something? Oh fuck, I'll check it, man. Sorry, mate. Ethan Reyes, I think it was, or Reese. Anyway, Fitz Madrid, Joe Watt, Chandler Marlin, Alex Northrop, Ed Coulthard, Johnny LaFleur, Clayton Taylor, Hugo Newski, Maxwell Burke, BREN86, like a robot. Anthony Kabarak. Oh, that was gonna say, fucking congratulations to Anthony Kabarak. I don't know if you want me to say it out loud, but just if you're hearing this, mate, congratulations. Good luck with everything. You're a fucking top guy. Hope everything works out. Anyway, to carry on, Don Wayne, Liam Williams, Fragile Feeling, Chris Cusimano, Sebastian from the Discord, Degenerate Alpha Zero, Chris Davis, Trey Nance, Charlie, Olin Thorne, Amy Rupert, Rubicon, Prashant Singh, Azad, Frank Austin, Amelia Mee, Christina Ravetti, Josh Stifle, Moody Al-Rashid, Bill Wilson, Emiliano, Andrew Hurley, Vida Provost, Brian McLaughlin, Ari from the Discord, Young Wasabi, Sarushe Hawazi, Tony Bin, Adam Bergsnyder, Scartoon Music, Stephen Davila, Patrick Bronte, Dan Dunham, Fletcher Tate, Chad Walker, Diana Gorvanek, Q-Ball, Lawrence Abrahams, Peter McCormick from What Bitcoin Did, Emily Molly, Axel Iverson, Christopher Martin, Ryan Sandercock, Daniel Shearer, and Joanna Stocker. Thank you all very much, top tier patrons. Really appreciate it, man. Like I always say, without you lot, I'd be fucked. It would all just fall apart. So thanks very much. Again, please do support Popular Front. Go to patreon.com/popularfront, or if you want to do it a different way, go to our website, popularfront.co/support. There's Bitcoin, there's donations, there's all sorts of ways. Thank you for everyone who has been doing the donations and all that recently. Like, I put out a ton of content over Corona times and everyone was locked down because I knew everyone would be bored, one would want new shit. And, you know, people have seen that and have been like, yeah, boom, like, let's get on board, Patreon, everything. So, really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Music in this episode, the intro is by Home, and the outro, as always, is by Sam Black, aka Son of Old. Listen to his music at samblackpf.com.